Alright guys, we are back with another shortish PowerPoint focusing on the moons of Mars, Phobos and Deimos. And first slide, just for anybody who is new, in the description box is a link to the apostolic letter that Pope Benedict XVI wrote for the world to learn that indeed the Christ is back. His name is Leonard Golightly-Marshall. And the new name of the Revelation 3:12 is Yahweh-Jesus, Leonard Golightly-Marshall. The link in the description box. Here's one of the photographs that was sent to Pope Benedict XVI. Yeah, this one I call the badass. Yeah. Of course, Hebrew for Yahweh. Now, remembering the last PowerPoint uploaded, the geocentric Earth, the Sun orbiting around the Earth-universe axis, and learning that Mars and Mercury are moons of the Sun, and we'll learn, rather, Mercury and Venus are moons of the Sun, and we'll learn that Mars actually is, as well as their moons, Phobos and Deimos, are not actually moons but asteroids. At the altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, that is the Great Pyramid at Giza, is today proven to be the center of the Earth landmass. Mars orbited the Sun with Mercury and Venus, and Mars did not have any moons or asteroids until the Great Flood. And the Great Flood was caused when Mars was drawn to the axis of the Earth universe. The magnetic land mass North Pole drew the South Pole of Mars, and it collided. This blasted out two small volcanic ejecta, or two asteroids, and the impact blew out Antarctica, forming Earth's moon, orbiting Earth and the universe axis. Mars at 4,216 miles wide. The number 4216 within the Greek concordance means carried away of the flood. And there is a great big hello. Just remember this for later, but you can see there, as Yah has indicated, the Mars impact point, and then the black arrow showing the direction that the ejecta spewed out and formed Greenland. Again, the width of Mars, 4216 in the Greek concordance, carried away of the flood. So Mars in ancient times came very close to the Earth every 108 years. Today, all the water of Mars is gone. The disturbance of Mars' orbit was caused by Venus. Mars' radius, the radius half of the diameter, 4216, is therefore 2108. In the Hebrew concordance is removal. From what? From its original orbit. In the Greek concordance, 2108 means good deed, benefited, done. In other words, it gave the Earth its planet or moon. Mars was drawn into the magnetic field of the Earth, dumping all of its water, and we can see where it impacted the Earth and the results caused. Greenland, as we saw in the previous slide, is impact ejecta. Antarctica forced out from the mantle, causing the planet or moon to form in space. And two asteroids out of Mars, Olympus Mons. The molten mantle of the Earth at 2200 degrees Celsius began to form a sphere. The temperature of space is minus 454.58 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the same number as the altar to the Lord in the midst of Egypt. Its present day height in feet, 454.48 feet high, up to the rejected summit the rejected capstone summit platform. Of course, the rejected capstone is the Christ today. That's Yah himself. As the moon cooled into a sphere, the surface underwent gas bubbles from within, forming vast, perfectly round craters. And then over time, a vast number of chunks of solidified magma or asteroids were drawn to collide with the North Pole and the far side of the moon. The moon itself wobbles very slightly. Its iron core is 40 miles off centre, causing the one face to be locked onto the Earth at all times. The moon has a mean density of 3,346.4 kilograms per metre. The number 3346 within the Hebrew Concordance is the word burning found in Daniel 7:11. Then I beheld, because of the voice of the presumptuous words which the horn spake, I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, and given to the burning fire. 3346 in the Greek Concordance means to change, carry over, and translate. And this is the verse out of Jude, which is really back to the beginning of Yah's revelation from Canada in 1991. Reading the verse, for there are certain men crept in, which were before of old ordained to this condemnation. Ungodly men they are, which turn the grace of our God into wantonness, and deny God, the only Lord, and our Lord Jesus Christ. So the verse is telling us that the Talmudic priesthood took control of the truth, perverting the Gospels and misdirecting into the perversions of Paul. Now, this is from the Geneva Bible, which has footnotes, and reading the footnotes, Jude, well, there's only one chapter in Jude, so let's just call it Jude verse 4. It is by God's providence and not by chance that many wicked men creep into the church, meaning God allowed it through free will. He condemneth this first in them, that they take a pretense or occasion to wax wanton by the grace of God, which cannot be, but the chief empire of Christ must be abrogated, in that such men give up themselves to Satan, as at this time the sect of the Anabaptists doth, which they call libertines. Yah's notes, man has turned to Satan governments under Judaism, meaning child sacrifice, blood libel. Now, the scholars throughout history were duped into believing their lowercase God of Judaism is supposed to be the heavenly Father of Jesus. The God of Judaism is the devil itself, and is what got Jesus crucified. Even Caiaphas, the high priest at the time, recognized that if the God, as Jesus, Yah taught, God is love, that if the God of Jesus were the truth, they recognized that they had no salvation. How true that is. So the scholars combined the two sacred names of Jesus and Christ. When Jesus himself, Yah as Jesus, was predicting Christ, the Comforter, Almighty God himself, again as Jesus, predicting he will give it him. So who is him if not Jesus? And a third identity, being God reincarnated. A third entity throughout time. It's really a third dispensation of time. For you have the Lord within the heavenly realm before he's on the earth as the Son, known as Jesus, and then Jesus tells that there'll be another that will come that will be the Holy Ghost, the Comforter, the Spirit of truth proceeding from the Father, because he is the Father. So that is himself back, but he won't be recognized as the young buck Jesus. As a matter of fact, he'll be rejected, which is the prophecy fulfilled, and YR is not particularly perturbed. It's the way it is. So the revelation began with Jude, really, when counting God or Lord, that is the numbers of the words, good or bad. Again, it's all about the word count. So 6,666 verses. This is all within the King James 1611. 6,666 verses contain the word Lord. 3,877 verses contain the word God. However, within those 3,877 verses, the word God is found 4,443 times. So this was all right back at the very beginning. And, who to even think but God himself to begin counting? I am the count. Yah says, since then I revealed conception, birth, star of Bethlehem, the date of death and risen again. So as Jesus, he lived 3 days unto death on the cross, or 5 days to the resurrection. Born June the 17th in the year 2 BC. The cross, April the 3rd, 33 AD. Resurrection, April the 5th, 33 AD. Jerusalem time. Always remember that, Jerusalem time. Today we are recording this from Australia, which is the holy city, and Australia is ahead of Jerusalem time. Yah says, I purchased a Strong's Concordance. In it, 8,674 Old Testament words, as 86.74 years becomes 31680 days. Very significant. Now, Mars with no moons orbits the Sun as the universe-Earth axis is body number 1, then the Sun number 2, and Mars number 3. So those 3 prevents a 4th body orbiting the 3rd. But as Mars glanced off the Earth, this is at the impact ejected Deimos, outer, and Phobos, inner orbit. This was out through Olympus Mons that we discussed in the other slide. In other words, Mars did not gather from the void of space 2 old objects. It was only by the hand of God placed there for a very specific reason, and that was to allow NASA to buy a Russian engine, sending it to rendezvous with Deimos, and then nudge Deimos towards Earth, narrowly missing us, and it was July the 19th, 2010. The reality is that only the Talmud priesthood is absolutely convinced that Christ is back. And there we have protocol number 14 from the Leonard Elders of Zion: we shall forbid Christ. A more stupid statement has never been uttered. The COVID-19 vaccination program of Gates is the Jews' last chance to kill or enslave you all. They will try. Yah is on the earth. They will try. It's like their last hurrah. Now, getting back to the word Lord count found in 6,666 verses, well, that is the speed of the sun on Resurrection Day, which was April the 5th, 33 AD, and also the same April the 6th, 1943, Conception Day within Australia. So the speed of the sun orbiting the universe-Earth axis, 66,666.666 miles per hour. Again, you've got the Lord count, 6666, God, found in 3877 verses, 4,443 times. What does it all mean? Well, 3877.66 miles is the measure from the Rebirth Maternity Hospital, that is St. Margaret's, Darlinghurst, Sydney, when measuring to the South Pole. God measures his creation. That is where the truth is revealed. Yah says, what I revealed in 1990 was their death sentence. Who? Well, the Talmudic priesthood and the Jews who call themselves Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. It's a reality of judgment after millions of deaths. This is over millennia. Children kidnapped, then tortured to produce adrenochrome for Satanists from Hollywood all the way up to the royals. It was now all up to Trump and the US military. And my judgment today, no mercy for any of them. Yah says, Ash found me when I was 64 years of age. So 12 years later, now 76 today, all churches and governments are held captive. They have no possible interest in a provable Christ, but for the US military and Trump. Keep in mind, says Yah, I had given my life to God at age 6.6 years, or 2424 days old. The number 2424 in the Greek concordance is the number listing for Jesus. It was 1950, the year that we reviewed in the previous upload. Yah's having been taken back while in the schoolyard, taken back to Carmel with Mary and Joseph, the guardian over Mary. So Yah says from 1950 to 1990, the obvious was mathematics. Then Queen Elizabeth II was served the Declaration of Notice of Claim, receiving it June 14, 2010, coincidentally not Donald Trump's birthday. And then Trump himself notified June the 13th, 2012. Then the contact with the US military, and then finally Pope Benedict the 16th in 2013, March the 12th, declares Salvator Mundi. And over the years, there have been thousands of YouTube uploads, a lot of them deleted or locked out of channels. Over the decades, Yah says one must conclude that locations, names of streets or hospitals, all within the creation were waiting to be located precisely by me to reveal what only I can reveal and fulfill the prophecy of them. So, in other words, it's like this. Jesus lived 3 days, multiplied by the full value for pi, which is 3.14159. It goes on and on on your calculator. Just look at it. However, it gives a value of 38776.645. So there we have the 3877 verses where God is found 4443 times in the 3877 verses. But more, well, just as amazing is measuring from the South Pole. Why the South Pole? Well, Australia, where the Christ was reborn, is in the southern hemisphere. So think of it as a cardinal point where God measures to. The South Pole is 3877.66 miles to the Rebirth Hospital, St. Margaret's, Darlinghurst, Sydney, Australia. Again, the word God count in the 3877 verses, 4443 times, reflects the radii of the king planet, Jupiter. Its radii 44,430 miles, and Jupiter orbits the Earth-universe axis. And yeah, between Jupiter and the Earth axis, there are entirely dissimilar forces of attraction. So as the sun orbits the universe axis, and again, the Earth sits upon the universe axis, it runs through the Earth. Therefore, the sun has 3 moons: Mercury, Venus, and Mars. Again, it's quite simple. Says, yeah, another moon cannot orbit an existing moon or planet sphere. due to multiple gravitational forces, which accelerates the third object out into space. Yah says the Earth, like a gimbal, slides along the universe axis, moving northward at 43,200 miles per hour. Mars, like Venus and Mercury, orbits the Sun, but Venus and Mercury have no moons. The two tiny fragments called Phobos, the inner orbit, and Deimos, the outer orbit, they are asteroids. And recently Phobos crashed to the surface due to comet P76, creating a 3-year dust storm. P76 disturbed both asteroids and now they're missing. However, the evil twist is that the evil ones captured Deimos, attached a rocket, sending it to hit the Earth, but the Earth's magnetic field pushed it out into space. This all went down July the 19th, 2010. Yah says, I watched it passing over our farm and then vanish in the Earth's shadow. And yes, Yah just reiterates that everything else is a lie. And this is why the truth will set you free. Understanding Jude 4 again. For there are certain men crept in, which were before of old ordained to this condemnation. Ungodly men they are, which turn the grace of our God into wantonness, and deny God the only Lord, and our Lord Jesus Christ. This is the Babylonian mystery religion. Again, you can go through the footnotes there from the Geneva. Down the bottom, though, Yah says, Earth and planets are perfect in creation's measure, and that only Christ can interpret. So finally, Mars captured the two asteroids and settled back, orbiting the Sun. Inevitably, both Phobos and Deimos were lost. Now going back to 1990, the beginning of Yah's revelation from BC Canada, the word certain was and is used to avoid saying the name Jesus. A Pharisee, who is an enemy of Jesus, Talmud blood sacrifice, they would say that certain man or that man's certain. Then in 1990, says Yah, my wife Pauline, low IQ, said to me one day, if you read the Bible, you would believe it. I replied, if I read it, I will destroy it. So Yah says, I took on the challenge and purchased a KJV 1611 Bible, also a 286 IBM computer and a printer in order to record the numbers. Yah says, if it were of God, then the thread of truth must be in the repeat of the words, as already shown, God, Lord, and certain. Yah says, as I studied, it was obvious there were many gods, and the Lord and the God of Moses was cruel and evil. Therefore, the Bible is a massive confusion of words. Yah says, I began by skimming each line where these words were located. I coloured lowercase God, for example, with red and Lord with blue, disregarding the plural gods or lords. The word certain I underlined, compiling verse numbers and repetition of a word in one verse. Yah says, overall I counted, then typed out these verse numbers. God was found in 3877 verses, 4,443 times. Lord, 6,666 verses, however, 7,830 times. Add the 4 as numbers, totals 22,814. Yah says, I typed out the 194 verses with the word certain, then stuck them on a 9-foot by 4-foot sheet of plywood. It was an odd size, most are 8 by 4. So as Yah says, reading, when I got to the 5 in John, it was the first miracle of Jesus. John 4:46, and then John 5:5, and then certain man found in John 11:1, reading John 5:5, and a certain man was there which had been diseased 38 years, in other words 38 years. Or John 11:1, Yah's rebirth day, the 11th of January, and a certain man was sick, named Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. And I am, of course, the reincarnate of Martha Magdalene. Lazarus is Adam, who in this life is my son, my brother in that life. So the column numbers pointed to another verse, this one written in red. And Yah read, "My son, his mother and I are well pleased with you, and a place has been reserved for you in paradise from the beginning." And on that day, Yah says, I had spent hours skimming every line of 31,101 verses. And as he said, it was new to me. So Yah says it was 2:22 a.m. My wife Pauline is asleep. I woke her, showed her the verse. She, a self-proclaimed expert, was unfamiliar with it. Handing it back, I read it. She took it back again and read it. Back and forth. Then, as I read it for the last time, it vanished. She confirmed, then said I was tricking her, which temporarily angered me. Turning out the lights. In bed, it was pitch black. And then top right of the room, against the ceiling, a dot of pink light, and then another bigger, and pushed the first away before it. Then another, until it filled the room, and it looked like the nebula M42. And here is M42. Absolutely stunning. Going back in time to Galileo in 1610 on January the 7th, with his self-built 10-inch wide lens in his 10-foot long telescope, he drew a detailed map of Jupiter's moons, the belt of Orion, but no mention of the brightest star, or nebula, M42. He then gave his telescope to Nicholas de Parsec. So taken from the internet reading, Nicolas Claude Fabre de... Now, it's not Parsec, not the way that it's written, Peresque, and the discovery of the Orion Nebula. So now we've gone from January the 7th, 1610 with Galileo, down to November the 23rd, 1610. It was French astronomer and savant Nicolas Claude Fabre de Paris discovered the Orion Nebula, a diffuse nebula situated south of Orion's belt in the constellation of Orion. It is one of the brightest nebulae and is visible to the naked eye in the night sky. De Paris and his discovery, and then it goes. De Paris' interests as a scholar were widely dispersed. He immediately announced it, but astronomers could not find it because it had gone out and remained missing for several years and then found again, all with a big question mark. And then another report which says it was discovered in 1610 by the French scholar Nicolas Claude Fabre de Paris, and independently in 1618, there's the Fibonacci number 1.618, by the Swiss astronomer Johann Seifert. It was the first nebula to be photographed in 1880 by Henry Draper in the United States. And so Orion Nebula M42, the center of the Orion Nebula M42. Now Carl Sagan and his team of astronomers reported M42 was 1,600 light years distant. Yah says I uploaded to the internet that it was the Star of Bethlehem, as it is known to go out and then back on. So subtracting 1600 years from de Paris in 1610 means the light should have been seen 1600 years prior, as light years means back in time. So from his time back 1600 years to 2 BC. However, as I pointed out, that 2000 years ago, so this is in more current years, 2000 years ago, M42 was the Star of Bethlehem. With everything that Yah reveals, it created a mad scramble to recalculate its distance, and then finally settling on, here we go, it lies at a distance of 1344 light years from Earth and is the nearest stellar nursery to Earth. In Hebrew concordance, the number 1344 is arrogance, ashamed, confusion, a shameful thing, found in Job 8:22. They that hate thee shall be clothed with shame, and the dwelling of the wicked shall not remain. Right, so we're switching from M42 subject back to Phobos and Deimos, the asteroids of Mars. Now Yah says I had calculated the 2 asteroids of Mars' escape velocity. Phobos in the Greek concordance is numbered 5399, which means to frighten, afraid. Its escape velocity was only 1 meter per second. It's about the speed of a crawling baby, and for me, a very strong message. As a child, my sister terrorized me. She was cruel and mentally ill. The age between us, her name June Maria Ann, she was born August the 18th, 1938, to January the 11th, 1944, is 5.399 years. The number 5399 is found within 6 verses in Revelation and has the word fear, meaning phobio or phobos, reading Revelation 1:17 from the Geneva. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead. Then he laid his right hand upon me, saying unto me, Fear not, I am that first and that last. Now in the Geneva Bible, the footnotes, it divides the verse into 3 understandings of the end. Again, the age difference between June and Yah, 1972 days or 5.399 years. So reading the footnotes of the Geneva Bible, Revelation 1:17, a religious fear that goeth before the calling of the saints and their full confirmation to take upon them the vocation of God. Revelation 1:17, remembering it's been broken down into 3 parts, A, B, and C. A divine confirmation is this calling, partly by sign and partly by word of power. Then C, a most elegant description of this calling contained in 3 things which are necessary unto a just vocation. First, the authority of him that calleth, for that he is the beginning and end of all things. In this verse, for that he is eternal and omnipotent, verse 18. Secondly, the sum of this prophetical calling and revelation, found in verse 19. Lastly, a declaration of those persons unto whom this prophecy is by the commandment of God directed in the description thereof, found in verse 20. Now Yah says that 2 moons, asteroids, are now missing of Mars, Phobos and Deimos, and as we saw in the previous slide, they are irregular in shape. Now both were discovered by a man by the name of Asaph Hall in August 1877 and are named after the Greek mythological twin characters Phobos, meaning panic or fear, and Deimos, terror or dread, who accompanied their father Ares into battle. Both Phobos and Deimos share the same Greek concordance number 5399. Deimos is found once in 1 Peter 3:14 and reading, Notwithstanding, blessed are ye if ye suffer for righteousness' sake. Yea, fear 5399, not their fear 5399, neither be troubled. And in the footnotes, it says a most certain counsel in afflictions, be they never so terrible, to be of a constant mind, and to stand fast. But how shall we attain unto it, if we sanctify God in our minds and hearts, that is to say, if we rest upon him as one that is almighty, that loveth mankind, that is good and true indeed. Again, this is the age difference between June and Yah. Now, the meaning of Phobos and Deimos, the age difference between June and Yah, to put to flight by terrifying, to scare away, to put to flight, to flee, to fear, be afraid, to be struck with fear, to be seized with alarm, of those startled by strange sights or occurrences, of those struck with amazement, to fear, be afraid of one, to fear, that is hesitate, to do something for fear of harm. And lastly, to reverence, venerate, to treat with deference or reverential obedience. And as Yah says, or for me, the most unlikely to reverence or venerate. The reality, to treat with deference or reverential obedience. The Strong's definition there, 5399 from 5401, to frighten, to be alarmed by analogy, to be in awe of, that is revere, be sore afraid, fear, exceedingly reverence. Now, coincidence after coincidence. Hello, numbered 378, God will prove by coincidence within the Greek concordance. Since the Creator wrote the script and his building blocks are all intentional. Digging deeper, the carpenter who built his own telescope with the name Asaph Hall in August 1877 astounded astronomers with his discovery of Phobos and Deimos, and in disbelief referred to them as Mars Hall lights or Marshall lights. Hello. Again, Phobos and Deimos, the two of them, were molten ejecta from the Mars-Earth collision. We see here the small impacts are newer, frozen solid as molten material, like that of our moon, was peppered as the main body was cooling in space, caused by the Mars-Earth impact, seen in Greenland as ejecta material. And again, this photograph is Phobos. But yes, Greenland is ejecta material. All right, here are the statistics, the numbers concerning Phobos and Deimos, the two asteroids that were of Mars. This can be found on the internet. And yes, again, the Mars impact site, the black, yellow, the black line showing the direction that the ejecta forming Greenland with its highest mountain at 12,139 feet or 3,700 meters in height. Now, in the Greek concordance, 3,700 means to gaze with wide open eyes at something remarkable. However, in the Hebrew concordance, it means to fear and to become pale. And if we had been witnessing, we've been there witnessing what went on with this impact, I'm pretty sure we'd be gazing with our eyes wide open at this remarkable event, and we would be pale with fear for sure. However, here's the fear again, Phobos and Deimos, the asteroids of Mars that once were. Now, Yah says we see how there are common denominators. We've got the average height of Earth's land mass, that's with all the valleys filled in and all the mountains made low. The average height of the land mass is 454.58 feet, which is the same height as the altar to the Lord up to the rejected Capstone Summit platform. It is also the temperature of space in degrees Fahrenheit at minus 454.58 degrees Fahrenheit. And of course, the altar to the Lord is the center of the land mass after the earth was impacted, called the navel of the world. And the impact, of course, gave us our moon. Here atop the earth, the radius of the moon at 1080 miles, the radius of the earth 3960 miles, taking note of the angle that is formed in the triangulation there, 51.84 degrees. And as Yah points out, that ground human bones poured in a pile forms the perfect pyramid or pi angle, linking man to the universe, which is also based on pi. Why? Well, pi is the witness. 3141 in the Greek concordance means witness, testimony, record, and usually of future events. The distance, the circumference of the outer circle, 31680 miles around the moon atop the earth. So yes, the earth and moon forms the altar, pi, face angle, and a circle measuring 31680 miles. 3168 in the Greek gematria is Lord, 800, Jesus, 888, plus Christ at 1480, totals 3168. And as Yah says, my home in Melbourne sat on latitude 31680 kilometres around the earth, and it was 5,813 kilometres from the South Pole, which is the completed height of the altar to the Lord in pyramid inches, 5813 pyramid inches. And Yah finishes with, yes, many of you are very aware already loaded, so to speak, but little children, innocent, have to be helped along. And here he is, the Christ. His new name of the Revelation 3:12, Yahweh-Jesus, Brian, Leonard, Golightly-Marshall. And the link for In Christendom Credent in the description box, along with the link to the document that Yah wrote for Pope Benedict XVI called Vatican III.